I believe. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Deanne.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, hello, everyone. And we are going to be speaking with Millie Gormley today. Millie is a certified financial planner specializing in managing investments and insurance for independent women in Ontario. She lives way up north in Thunder Bay with her husband and cat. So, how we will proceed here, welcome Millie,
Thank you.
is
Thank you.
we will go through a series of questions, and the conversation today is around overwhelmed about money. So, we're going
hmm
to speak a little bit about clarifying financial priorities and like how and what financial planning can be for you, right?
Okay.
All
Yeah,
right.
sounds good to me.
Okay, excellent. So, um, the what I'll do is I'll go through a series of questions. And Millie, we had a great talk preparing for this, so I know you
Yeah.
will be able to fly along with this. So, one of the first questions is around getting started with the financial aspect of financial planning. And
hmm
my question is, when do people typically need professional financial assistance?
You know what? It just occurred to me that almost every question you're going to ask me today, the answer is going to start with, it depends, because it really
Right.
does. Right. Financial planning is one of those things that is very specific to an individual and their own circumstances. So you don't necessarily need like professional financial planning advice as an 18-year-old, or just getting out of school or, just starting on your own. It's as long as you have the wherewithal to start a savings plan and, start socking some money away somewhere, that's pretty much a good starting point for someone just getting started in life. I would think probably one of the major times that you might want to think about consulting a financial planner, like to actually sit down and say, okay, what is my situation? How can I make it better? How can I set myself up for the long term? Is after a major life change. So let's say, you're getting married. Great time to sit down and have a conversation about how we're going to combine finances, if we're going to combine finances, how are we going to navigate together as a married couple and have the finances work for us as a couple. Another major life change would be on the back end of a marriage, and if you're getting divorced, how am I going to move forward with my new financial reality? And the new financial reality for a lot of women is that they're going to be financially worse off, at least in the short term, after a divorce, much more so than men are. And that's something that needs to really be considered and thought about when you're looking at, the next stage of your life. Basically, any time that you're thinking about the future and trying to figure out how you're going to make it work financially is a great time to sit down with someone and get a good opinion as to where you stand.
Yeah, I love that. And you really touched on something which is the transition parts, like at
hmm
any transition. And it's interesting because in our conversation, you had touched on these major life changes. And I'm wondering if you can just share what some of the other major life changes are where, what happens at those stages when we actually start to speak with someone with your experience in financial planning, but also your experience in dealing with these changes and women who
hmm
come to speak to you.
Okay. Well, basically anything in life that's got you thinking, oh shit, now what? Is a
Mm,
great sort of transition point in life. Anything where it's this was my life before this happened, this is now my life after this thing happened. So we've already talked about marriage and divorce, and those are two great big personal milestones that people often have. Not everybody does, of course, but that's those are ones that come to mind very easily. Another one that people might not think about as often is changing a job, changing a career, starting a business or stopping a business and going back into corporate, because that's a time to look at, okay,
right.
well, what do I have? Especially when you're talking about if you've lost a job or you're leaving a job where you had a pension plan. And so that you've been contributing to this pension plan the whole time you were with this employer. And now it's up to you to figure out how it's going to move forward. You can't leave it with the employer. You can take it on yourself in the form of a locked-in retirement account. You can, you usually will have options as to how you can deal with it. And a few good decisions, well-timed and proper decisions at that sort of pivot point in your life can have a huge impact, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. Another obvious, fairly obvious to me anyway, pivot point is a death in the family. So your parents die and you inherit. Your spouse dies and now you've got to reorganize your entire life. And the thing is, a lot of these things can be planned for ahead of time. A lot of these things can't. I mean, to a certain extent, marriage and divorce, you've got a heads up that this is happening, right? We all have a heads up that death is happening to us all. I hate to break it to you folks, but this is just how it is. And there's all the reason in the world to plan ahead for that with your parents, with your kids, and just kind of knowing what you want to happen to things after you pass away. Planning for that ahead of time is going to make life so much easier for the people that are left behind. Um, yeah, I mean, just any sort of major life event that's going to affect your finances is a good time to talk to someone.
I love that. I love that. And I know you also talked about empty nesters, and I don't know if
Mhm.
they feel like that's a big change, but it was on the heels of you talking about like planning for the future. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could share with us what are some of the like insurance considerations that should be part of a complete financial plan?
Yeah. Financial planning in a lot of ways is about making sure that all of those little pieces of your financial life are working together. And so when I sit down with someone for the first time, we'll start by talking about cash management. What's coming in, what's going out? Can we siphon off some to start saving for the future? And that conversation pretty organically leads into the retirement planning conversation. What do you want your retirement to look like? How do you want to live? Do you want to be, snowbirding, or do you want to be staying at home, or whatever it is? It's very much a what do you want to be when you grow up kind of conversation, where you're really
Yeah.
looking and sort of fantasizing a little bit about what the future could be like for you. And then we start talking about the investment side of it because, well, how are we going to make this happen? And the retirement planning is the what, and the investment planning is the how. How can we organize your finances and organize your investments in such a way that we've got a reasonably good chance of getting the outcome that you want, which is, a certain amount of cash flow or income or assets to work with on the end of times. And we were talking about insurance. Insurance is the thing that protects all of that. So you're working really hard to save money, to put money aside, to invest it properly, to plan for the future. Well, what if something happens to you? What if you get sick or injured
Right.
and you can't work? That's where we start talking about a disability insurance concept. What happens if you become critically ill and you can't work? That's where we start talking about a critical illness policy. And of course, what happens to everybody else if you die? And that's where life insurance comes into play, because you can use a life insurance policy to develop an estate for you that you didn't have the time to do so if you pass away early. So by having a life insurance policy in place, you can take care of any debts that you had. You can leave something for your children, your heirs in general. You could leave something to charity. You can set things up in a way that will minimize the inconvenience of your death. I mean, I tell people insurance isn't for you. Life insurance certainly is not for you. Life insurance is for those people who are financially inconvenienced by the fact that you've passed away. And those are the people that you're trying to
Yeah.
help with that. And then again, on sort of the back end of things, so there's the front end is the cash management, the retirement planning, the investment planning. And then we start looking at the back end, which is the insurance to protect all of that, and taxes, tax planning to minimize slow the bleeding that gets sent up to CRA. And then on the very back end is the estate planning. Do you have a will in place? Do you have powers of attorney in place? What do you want to happen to your assets when you no longer need them? I mean, I tell my clients all the time, I don't want you to die on a pile of money. That's no fun. That's not what life is about. You should be using your money that you can enjoy yourself. You can reap the benefits and enjoy the fruits of your labor. But if I've done my job right as a planner, and if everything is, gone to plan, then there will be something left, and you want to make sure that it's going to be distributed in such a way that makes sense for you. There's only a certain, you can only control things from beyond the grave so much. But you can certainly try to set things up in as, kind and generous and sensible a way as possible.
I love that. You really seem to approach it from a complete lifestyle approach.
Yeah.
And I want to, because you touched on the advanced planning around wills and why they're important, and
Hmm.
there's our marker for time. So I would love you to share, if you wouldn't mind, what this scorecard is that you have that will help each of us to get our sort of our own idea of where we're at in this big, matrix of information.
Yeah, it's called the Living Plan Snapshot. And what it does is it's a questionnaire that you go through. I will admit it's a bit comprehensive in the amount of questions that it asks you. But you know what? If you're taking this seriously, a 3-question questionnaire is not going to cut it if you really want to get at least a half decent sense of where you're actually at. But it's a questionnaire that you go through that goes through all those different aspects of financial planning that we just talked about. And at the end, you'll get a score in each of those areas. So if you go through the retirement planning section and you've got a pension, you've got your CPP, you've got savings, and all of these things are in place, you'll get a score that says, congratulations, you're in a really good place. Your retirement looks good. Here's a couple of areas that we can touch on. And the same goes through for the other aspects. The point of it is to give you something to think about, and also to be a source of information for me, because one of the things that I offer along with that is a free half-hour mini money plan. So, you go online, you can fill out that questionnaire, and then I get the information on the back end. It doesn't go into really hard numbers. You're not giving me your personal information. I do not want your social insurance number, but it just gives me a sense of where you're at. And that's
Yeah,
really good, helpful information for me as we have this conversation, because it allows me to bring, the 20 years of experience I have to the conversation, kind of get a sense of, okay, what would be your next best step? So even, and of
I
course,
love that.
yes, these things are a marketing tool and a way to get people to sit down and have conversations with me, not gonna lie. But you know what, even if someone doesn't become a client for whatever reason, good or bad or ugly, at
Yeah,
least I'm able to provide them with some clarity on their situation, and to give them a little bit of direction as to how I think they can best move forward. And to me, that's worth a half hour of my time.
yeah,
So
I
yeah,
love that.
that's my offer basically.
I love that. Someone suggested that maybe you could call it the mini Millie money plan.
That's
Thank
enough
you
of a
very
tongue
much.
twister, I think.
Right? Well, this has been great, because I just love how you've touched on so many different areas that someone might not always link back to who you are and what you do and how you help us. So, what I'd love to do now, if you're good with it, is go into our rapid fire questions so people can get to know Millie a little bit better.
Okay,
Okay.
go do it.
Yep. Ready? Okay, here we go. So, what book has influenced you most professionally?
Ooh, professionally.
Mhm.
Oh my God, that does not narrow things down very quickly. Probably the one book that I keep referring back to over and over and over again is an old classic, and it's called Getting Things Done by David
Yeah.
Allen. And that book really started me on the journey. And okay, there's some words I'm starting to hate in this world. Journey is one of them because it's been horribly overused. Holistically is another one because it's been horribly overused. And coach. Coach has been horribly, it's just, I am not a holistic coach on a journey. Yeah, but the
Okay. So,
that
getting
particular
things
book
done.
got me to really get myself organized in ways that I'm still using today, and I probably first read it 20 years ago.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
So, early bird or night owl?
These days, early bird. I'm waking up at like
Okay.
4 a.m., getting up at
Oh,
7, but I'm waking up at 4.
Very early. Okay. What's
Mhm.
one app on your phone you couldn't live without?
Um, Again, so many. Sadly, I refer to Microsoft Teams because it pulls up my calendar quicker than anything else, but probably texting. Texting, if I
Okay.
couldn't text, I'm useless.
Excellent. Okay. Beach vacation or mountain retreat?
Beach. I am all about the beach. I put me in the sun, give me my Kindle, give me a hat and a cold beverage, and I could be there for hours just staring at the water. Happy girl.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that. I'll meet you at the beach. What's your go-to productivity hack?
Oh, again, so many. I recently implemented something that I got from another CAWEE member, Karen Rakonjic, turned me onto the a stacking email method.
Yeah.
So it's,
Nice.
going in to at the beginning of the day, getting all your emails organized, putting them into categories, and then working those categories one by one. And I'm finding it's already saved me so much time. It's great. Love it.
That's brilliant. What's something you're terrible at but enjoy anyway?
I like to think I'm at least a little bit good at everything I do.
At
Oh no,
what?
I am a crap dancer. Crap
Okay.
dancer. I auditioned for Chicago a couple last year, and I did fine. I did okay on the singing part. I did fine on the acting part, but the dancing part, oh God, it was awful. I'm so embarrassed by it to this day. Terrible.
That's awesome. Good for you for auditioning. Digital notes or handwritten?
Both. I've got everything everywhere. I've got post-its on my desk. I've got apps on my iPad. I've started dictating a book that I'm working on right now, so that's being dictated into my phone.
Nice.
Everything everywhere. Yeah.
Okay. Last two questions. What's a skill you'd love to master someday other than dancing?
It's something I've been working on since high school already. I play the French horn, and I would love to be a better player. And I know that the path to that is just to practice more. And that's something that I'm trying to find more time for in my schedule because I love the instrument and I love playing with other people. And it's a really wonderful creative outlet for me that's got nothing to do with work. And I definitely would love to be better at it.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I think you answered the 10th, which is what's your unexpected talent that has nothing to do with your profession? A French
There,
horn
right there.
player.
I play the French horn. I play in a brass quintet. That's a hot ticket on the nursing home ticket, let me tell you. And I play in the Thunder Bay Community Band. So,
Oh, that's
we're-
brilliant. What a
yeah.
beautiful way to give back. Awesome. Well, Millie, I thank you so much for this time today. It's been absolutely wonderful having you on the podcast.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for having me.
Great, Joe.